Sardar Mohammad Qayyum Khan is the leader, long-term leader. He's been president, currently prime minister of the area known as Azad Jammu and Kashmir. He recently paid a rather rare visit to North America. That was in September of 1993. He was here for some time visiting with members of the community, the Pakistani and Kashmiri community that is residing here in North America, as well as visiting with government leaders in Washington and in New York and Canada. And we were pleased to be able to accompany him on much of his journey as he went about meeting people and trying to spread the word, as it were, in terms of what some of the realities are in terms of that very, very crucial part of the world. The Kashmir issue, as it comes to be known, is a very delicate one, and it's a very crucial area of the world, and it's not nearly well enough understood by the American people. The Jammu and Kashmir, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Azad means free, and is seen by the Pakistani peoples as that part of the disputed territory of Kashmir that has been divided since 1947, when the subcontinent was divided and the British left, and by the rules that were set up, it was to be divided according to the desires of the people themselves in the various principalities and subdivisions and sections of the country. All was decided, all of it was decided more or less to everyone's agreement, except the area of Kashmir. It was overwhelmingly Muslim in its population, and yet had been ruled by a Hindu leader, and it was an accession to India on the part of that Indian leader. There was fighting took place. Sardar Khan as a young man, helped lead the freedom fighters and to establish a line in the ground behind which is Jammu and Kashmir. Those sections which are now known as occupied Kashmir by the Pakistani peoples continues to see human rights abuses, as have been documented by international agencies, and he wants to call attention to that, as well as to all of the crucial issues that are involved in this area of the world. Particularly since 1990, there have been a generalized uprising, as it were. The population is overwhelmingly Muslim, and the UN has called in many resolutions that there should be a plebiscite where the people of that area are able to decide. That plebiscite has not been able to be held, has not been held, and the occupying forces in Srinagar and in occupied Kashmir have been under great attack by a great number of human rights organizations and others. The fight diplomatically and on the ground and otherwise has been led by this gentleman, Sardar Khan. We were very pleased to be able to visit with him as he talked to journalists and newspaper people, government leaders and others about the realities of the situation there. And we're happy to have had an interview with him, an extensive interview, on September 6th here in New York, where he's able to talk to the issues as he sees it. He is revered by all of Pakistan, which is got many, many different divisions, of course, within it, politically and otherwise, but have a shared commonality in terms of the crucial question of the Kashmir issue. And at the very core of the Kashmir issue has been the man who has been the leader of the fight for the Kashmiri people and the Muslim people of the Kashmir section, Sardar Khan. The interview is about 50 minutes, and so we're pleased to be able to have that upcoming, and happy to welcome him to the program, and for you to be able to have him share with you his perception. So, without further ado, Sardar Mohammad Qayyum Khan, current Prime Minister of Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening and welcome very, very much to Conversations, where I'm pleased to welcome to the program a man that I hope we can help introduce to the American society that ought to be much better understood than I'm afraid he is at present, and that is Sardar Qayyum Khan from the Azad Kashmir and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. He's the Prime Minister of that very unique area. He has a tremendous story to tell, and welcome very, very much to Conversations to New York City and the United States. I wonder if you might, speaking to the general American audience now, I wonder if maybe you could fill us in, as it were, in a primer way, the development of the situation in Kashmir and the movement toward an independence movement of the Kashmir people, this within a broader context of South Asian developments and the development of what had been the British Raj and so forth. But I wonder if you could fill us in on the unique nature of the movement toward independence of Kashmir, which continues to plague us today.
Movement of freedom at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We see the word independence has a special political connotation.
Mm-hmm.
So we prefer to use the word freedom instead of independence, because independence is another aspect of the whole issue.
All right.
So we go by the freedom movement at the moment, as it is called.
Mm-hmm.
But I thank you very much for taking this time and asking me this question. I know that perhaps there's not so much of knowledge about the Kashmir issue as such, and with the passage of time it has been reduced to a very low priority all over the world. It's only very recently, the last 2 years perhaps, that because of gross violations of human rights by Indian security forces and the sacrifices made by the people to resist the repression, that people have started learning somewhat about it.
Yeah, and we have a great deal to understand. It has unique historical development.
See,
well, that you've had a great hand in helping to develop.
I have another great disadvantage in this. The whole Kashmir issue has that disadvantage. One is that the passage of time, as they say, is expected to heal the wound, and although it has not, but that is how the phrase goes. And some people thought the issue was petrified with the passage of time. And then, the world trend of maintaining status quo has been another disadvantage to the Kashmir issue. And in addition to that, it is the massive Indian propaganda and the Indian political clout and weight and size and influence that it has exercised all along, supported by Russia with vetoes of 100 times vetoes on Kashmir, and the United States expecting the issue to have been frozen and also trying to avoid any direct interaction with India because of the Cold War. So all these things put together have put us to a great disadvantage, and then new situation on that side, and our default also is also responsible to a great extent for that. We've not been able to project the Kashmir issue to the world around, expecting perhaps like innocent fools that the world will automatically learn the truth of the matter and they will come to our rescue and they will sort out problems for us, which the world has not done and will never do.
In all due respect, I think the fault lies with the American people for keeping ignorant of this extremely important development. And we have an obligation to try and learn it. But it is a thing. It's the movement that has been going on, and it's now beginning to appear in the papers increasingly. Yes. These gross violations of human rights that we are definitely going to want to talk about. But this all has a historical development.
Yes, that's right.
Kashmir, as an entity, goes back hundreds of years.
That's exactly
it brings it into the modern period, and you've had a hand in that.
That's exactly I was coming to. So the Kashmir issue is not like other issues of secession and intervention.
Exactly.
It's an issue internationally recognized as that of the right of self-determination. That is where the whole mistake lies. You see, the misconception starts taking place. People think that it is perhaps like somebody seceding, having decided to stay and then seceding and then being some intervention coming in. It's not like that. Millions of people on the subcontinent, they exercise the right of determination. It's only the Kashmiris who have yet not exercised that right.
Of all those states.
Of all the states, everybody has exercised right of self-determination except the Kashmiris. Now this right accrues from the partition plan, number one. And there's nobody today to change the partition plan. You see, Kashmir is an unfinished agenda of the partition of the subcontinent plan. So that is one. And secondly, it has been recognized by the United Nations. But recognized by the United Nations not on its own, but on the explicit request of the Indian government, at that time led by no less a person than Jawaharlal Nehru himself. It was he who went to the Security Council of the United Nations seeking intervention and causing the ceasefire to happen. And then the Security Council is also on record in 1957 to have rejected finally the Indian plea of substituting plebiscite for an election, assembly election, that's all.
Yes, sir.
So this is what is not actually understood.
Oh, and there's more, if I may. There's not actually well enough understood. If I could, in the name of the ignorant American people, I would also say that there had been a unity of the Indian subcontinent, the Paco-Indian subcontinent, of Hindu and Muslim peoples that were under the British Raj.
When I refer to the partition plan, I meant the whole philosophy of why India was partitioned.
Right.
And the Kashmir issue emanates from the partition plan.
Exactly. And this grows out of a rich historical tradition.
And in addition to that, India had claimed at one time that state had, through its ruler, exceeded with India. That had been one of the claims. Now, a book very recently written by an eminent scholar in England, Alistair Lamb, has challenged that document. In fact, that document of accession does not exist today on the face of earth.
Really?
It is not traceable. It's a very great fraud on history when you look into this. There has been no accession. It was never there. It was never signed. But Indian government pretended and convinced the world that the document had been signed. Although it was a flimsy argument, it did not stand the test of time or the test of the partition plan or the Security Council or the United Nations. It was in contravention of everything. But yet, the document also does not exist. Secondly, India had been relying on its connections with the Soviet Union, support of the Soviet Union, and trying to convince the United States, particularly, that India might go entirely move into the lap of Russia. Therefore, let the mischievous child do whatever she wants to do, is a little conniving at it. And then also she took the advantage of Pakistan having associated with the various pacts, you see, international pacts with the United States. And India then turned around and said, because Pakistan has become a part of defense pacts with the United States, therefore the Kashmir issue does not exist. But now there are no defense pacts. Russia has been dilapidated or reduced. But somehow or the other, it is really, one cannot explain why, but the United States continues to lend support to India. Now, despite all this background history, we feel that India is still taking advantage of a support or assistance or connivance or some complicity with India. Now, this is, in a nutshell, the brief background of the issue, which is internationally recognized. I am not telling you anything which is beyond this.
Oh no, this is all in the UN resolutions. These are all there. But it is also true to say, in a certain sense, again, if we can trace it back, we're talking now about that section of the Indian subcontinent, Kashmir. There were people who were leading or thinking of an independence movement or rebellion against British Raj and other rule as early as 1931. That was a very, very early development there in terms of beginning to change the political context that emerged out of Kashmir itself as an independent entity.
That's right.
And this is something that should be understood. We had these largely Hindu people. We had the Muslim peoples of the subcontinent. And when it came up to the time for the British to be forced to leave the subcontinent, it was necessary to establish two countries to separate the two people.
You see, the other disadvantage that we have is a colossal disadvantage, and that is subtle Indian propaganda playing on the sensitivities of the United States people and the West. Now they turn around and say that it is a territorial dispute. When you talk of a territorial dispute, people become unconcerned. And
Because it's like between two countries.
Exactly. But territorial
This is
dispute,
coming indigenous to the Kashmiri people
exactly,
themselves.
this territorial dispute, it has never been.
Yeah.
Kashmir had never been part of India, and it would never be part of India.
All right,
And
that's
India
interesting.
had no legal claim to it whatsoever. There's no legal, political, moral claim. In fact, Indian leadership of that eminence, Jawaharlal Nehru himself, they made unequivocal commitments on it, and they blatantly went back upon them, all of them. They repudiated every commitment. So that is one part of it. Secondly, India has used to its advantage the latest phraseology, playing on the sensitivities, as I said, of dubbing this movement as a fundamentalist movement, for example.
Oh, that's going to be one we have to deal with. Yeah,
This is what it is. And there has been absolutely no fundamentalism in Kashmir. Kashmiris are the only people who have lived in complete amity with each other over the ages, throughout the ages.
For hundreds of years.
For hundreds of years.
That's right.
Then they say when the people feel that this is a wrong approach and it's not tenable, then they move on to say that it's a terrorist movement.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the
I
word
know.
terrorism would frighten anybody.
We should get a definition.
Without even
Yeah,
knowing whether it was really
Right.
real or unreal. Now that has also been, we are grateful to the United States administration for this latest decision not to declare Pakistan as a terrorist state. Now India has tried its best to have it declared terrorist state, because that would put an end to everything. So, but the United States people, as I said, I'm grateful to them. Leaders of almost all walks of life in with responsibility, from the defense and Pentagon and diplomatic corps and others have been coming to Azad Kashmir, and the media men, and they have scrutinized the whole thing from top to bottom. Some stray incidents of terrorism in retaliation to suppression. You see, there have been repression, they have been there, but they were not an organized thing to be called a terrorist movement. And so that is, India tried to play on that sensitivity also. Moving from there, they go to say that it is an intervention by Pakistan. Now, intervention is another thing which nobody would like to have. See, any country intervening in matters, meddling with others' affairs. Now, that has also been proved beyond doubt that Pakistan, being a party to the dispute, was not doing even sufficient. What it should have done as a party, it is an equal party in the dispute, and the other party has been unilaterally exercising repression of all kinds, whereas Pakistan government has not been able to do much about it. One thing they say, and this has been trumpeted around by Indian propagandists, that Pakistan army has been training people and giving arms and that sort of thing to the freedom fighters, whom they sometimes called freedom fighters, sometimes they are called as terrorists, and sometimes so forth. Now that argument has also been exercised, a lot of exercise has gone into this over the past 2 years, and people have come to know that Pakistan army officers, retired or serving, I do not know exactly, but they were engaged in giving training to Afghan people, you see, that was within the knowledge of everybody. And,
Of course.
The whole world knew about it. And they incidentally made no distinction who they were training. Whether they were training Sudanese or Muslims and non-Muslims, or whether they were training Kashmiris. And the Kashmiris also found a very good opportunity to go and get training, you see, and even get weapons from the Afghans to go in.
Because of the Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan against the Soviets.
Adjacent. And they might be still doing it. So this allegation of Pakistan army training and giving weapons and that sort of thing has also been proved to be not very true. But I've been saying on the other hand that if Pakistan was totally out of it, a country adjacent, it cannot stay out of it because it has a great responsibility to its own defense and security.
Of course.
But even if it tried to stay out of it, somebody else would step in. And that somebody else, if it ever stepped in, that would make things even worse. And nobody will be able to give any direction to the movement. And the movement is gaining ground as the time goes on. Then they've been playing on sensitivities, as I said, all along, and then they try to make it a sort of ethnic strife in Kashmir, and they forced some of the non-Muslims to migrate from Kashmir into India and the other part of it. That also was later on proved to be a planned, designed thing. You see, it was not spontaneous. The people were not really scared of their lives to escape or to flee that area. So all this has been disproved completely so far. But incidentally, because people here they don't have so much access, and they don't have so much time, and the interest is not so much. Kashmir doesn't have any oil resources, therefore it figures very low in priority. Nor it is located in the west. Europe.
As is Bosnia.
As Bosnia, exactly. That's what I was saying. So it has not merited that high attention or high priority attention. But with the passage of time, as I said, it is acquiring such dimensions which would threaten ultimately the security of the whole region.
Yes, indeed, the region, and perhaps it reaches out into the broader world.
Of course it will.
And I'd like to back up a little bit, if you don't mind, in everything, and to bring in some very basic kind of primer thing is that in 1947-48, when the subcontinent and the British left the subcontinent, for some people, believe it or not, will not be aware of the fact that there was the need, and under the leadership of Mr. Jinnah, that they formed the state of Pakistan since 1947, and that the people who were of an essentially Muslim persuasion set up their independent country, and the people who were basically Hindu were set up in India.
Yes.
There were some questions of where the majority of people were Hindu or Muslim, and whether they should accede to one country or the other. There was some dispute over that. By and large, Pakistan was established on the west along the Indus River Valley, Punjab, Sindh, and so forth, and of course in what is now Bangladesh.
Yes.
And there were some conflict over some of the provinces, Hyderabad, I think, or Junagadh.
Yes,
all of this was settled as far as the lines on the ground, as far as the boundaries between these two people and these two countries. All of this was settled except Kashmir.
That's right.
That's the only one.
That's the only one.
There was conflict over Kashmir.
That's right.
And that was where, in Kashmir, there were 75 to 80% of the population was Muslim.
More than 80%, yes.
More than 80%.
Yes.
But,
and it should have, according to the
terms of agreement.
Plan, in terms of agreement, it should have acceded with Pakistan if it wanted to accede.
Absolutely.
With Pakistan.
Right. That would seem to make sense. But it had, if I may, and this is for the American people and for myself, it had a ruler who was Hindu.
Yes, non-Muslim ruler.
A Muslim ruler who had bought, or his people had bought, supposedly Kashmir, and the Kashmiri people for $36,000 from the British, or from some back in the 19th century, or something of that sort.
86, I think.
86, something like that. Yeah, whatever it was absurd. But he... 1846, right. This is the background of the history that was there, which is absurd on the face of it, so you can see other people. And that when the time came for the accession, that the question is that should by rights and by the terms of the agreement by which these two countries are going to be formed, that large area that is so strategically located at the top of the Indian subcontinent, cheek by jowl with China, Soviet Union, Afghanistan, Iran, is extremely important location, should have gone by all that's right and proper and by the agreements by which this was worked out to Pakistan, but there was difficulty in that. And you had a hand in that early phase back in the 1940s. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, if you could, your role in that. That would bring us to this what we call Azad Kashmir, or we should say for the American audience, that means free Kashmir, or the Kashmir that is Muslim-oriented. Right?
You see, at the time of partition, we people in this state, Jammu and Kashmir state, we felt, and we could see from the happenings around that there was some collision of career between the Indian leadership at that time and the outgoing British rulers, Lord Mountbatten perhaps
Yeah.
at the top of everything, to stop Kashmiris exercising the right of self-determination. So
Yeah.
when we sensed that, we started agitating that point right at the time of partition itself.
Because we should keep in mind that the rulers,
Yes.
or the leaders of Kashmir, were Indian.
Just the ruler
But
was
the
the-
people
the
of Ireland
people
were Muslim, and they had been largely in a certain oppressed by
No, by
these people.
by the same standard, you see, Kashmiris should have exercised the right of self-determination in favor of Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So that when we saw that that was not happening, then I had the opportunity to rise up against the state government and then state government, and we managed to enlist a lot of ex-army men
Yes, right,
to join
right.
that movement,
Right,
which
right.
resulted in a proper revolt, armed revolt against the state government, further resulting in a 15 months fight on the soil itself, liberating about 32,000 square miles of area, and the remaining 54 still remain under the joint occupation of the then state army and the Indian army. Both they joined in at a later stage.
And this was
Through a
within-
fraudulent instrument known as the instrument of accession.
All right.
They joined in.
And you did this because you could see clearly that
Yes.
the terms by which Kashmir
They're being
could
violated.
pass to Pakistan
Yeah, that's right.
were going to be violated.
They were being violated.
They were being
already.
violated.
They were being violated.
And you were
already.
you as a young man then,
As a
of course.
young man, of
You were
course.
a young
We had
man,
no
you
other
were 20,
alternative.
20 odd years old or something.
Yeah, that's right.
leading
I was-
this fight against this thing that was creating an unjust situation on the ground.
When the Indian government felt that perhaps they will not be able to stop the local uprising and they may capture the whole of Jammu and Kashmir state, they went rushing to the United Nations and sought their assistance, called for a ceasefire. And that agreement has also not been respected so far.
Well, yeah, that's another thing.
Yes.
But yeah, there was this confrontation going on between your fighting people.
Yes, that's right.
And there was a good opportunity,
Yes.
could be seen, that by the
We would have
Maharaj,
overrun-
by the leader, by
Yes,
the
we
Hindu
would have
leader,
overrun the
that it
whole
would be
thing.
you'd be able to establish Jammu and Kashmir as able to accede to Pakistan
Pakistan.
as it by right ought to, given 80% of the population. And he then acceded
That's right.
Kashmir in
Yes.
his name as the leader
Yes.
to India.
That's right. Maharaj
Called in the Indian
Yeah,
forces.
That's right. That's right.
And this is
But
the-
that accession instrument is reported not to have been signed.
I know you just said this.
Just
before
right.
earlier. Yeah, right.
It's another fraud on history. It's
Yeah.
a very great fraud on history.
But this is what created the
Yes.
conflict.
This is
in-
what created the conflict.
And this is the major bone of contention. This is the major bone of contention between Pakistan
That's
and
right.
India remains
That's right.
Kashmir, the
That's
one
right.
place that has not
That's
been
right.
solved. And it is a bone of contention that all the world should focus on.
That's right.
Because it is a place of tremendous conflict and it's a place of potential danger on a
to
world
the
scale.
security of the region.
But we
Now,
should-
the danger. Let me just point out what exactly the danger is. The magnitude of the danger. So the two countries poised against each other all the time,
Yeah.
leaning against each other all the time,
Yeah.
making all the possible defense preparations, including the nuclear preparation. Now, this nuclear problem is another very dangerous thing,
Amen.
which is not properly understood in the West, in the sense that whatever the quantum of nuclear preparation on both sides, this is known that both countries have acquired nuclear capability. Whatever the quantum, that's besides the point. This is less or more. That is not the point. But one thing that I said is not properly understood is that all nuclear preparations everywhere in the world are based on economic and political considerations. But here is the only spot where they are based on absolute naked religious hatred for each other. So this makes this changes the whole complexion of the presence of the nuclear capability. And people can go mad about it. And I have said time and again, and I repeat it, that if ever there was any possibility of a nuclear strike anywhere on the face of Earth, it is going to be on the subcontinent. And if it is not averted in time, and to avert it, they have to resolve the Kashmir issue. As long as the Kashmir issue remains a bone of contention, the possibility of a nuclear strike or use of defense forces on both sides will continue to be there.
And even though this has been the major bone of contention, wars have been fought between India and Pakistan, and three major wars have been fought on this. Even though it's the major bone of contention between the two countries, it is failing to be addressed in its in the fundamental way that it deserves to be and needs to be addressed
increasing day by day.
by the parties directly involved and by the world community at large.
Quantum of forces, defense forces, which have been concentrated in Kashmir in a small territory like that, small people, and the more than 500,000 army which is concentrated, plus half a million army, plus it's not 500,000, but it is plus the paramilitaries also, which are of equal or less than equal number. So there's a huge concentration. How long can they afford to have it there all the time?
Yeah, and so we've ended up with this section of Azad Kashmir, which we see on the map, is the section that has been, in a certain sense, how many square miles is that? About 32,000 square miles, and that's about what percentage of that is of the whole of the Jammu and Kashmir? About a one-third, right?
And this is on the other side.
And it is this zone of which you are Prime Minister, and if I may say so, the principal leader of the peoples of this area, and with respect to the people in Pakistan as well. There is on the other side, including Srinagar and the Valley of Kashmir, is on Indian-occupied Kashmir.
That is properly occupied. Azad Kashmir has its own constitution.
Yes.
It is linked up with Pakistan as far as defense and security is concerned. But for all of the purposes, it's an autonomous unit, like it existed at the time of partition under the overall suzerainty of the British government.
I see.
We enjoy the same status, almost the same status. So that is where we are with the present situation, fast escalating, and every other day we come close to a military confrontation, and then it is called off by some mechanism. But one day somebody might find it that it is not being called off at all.
But in the meantime, the people in Indian-occupied Kashmir, again, it's overwhelmingly Muslim, right? And there has been a general sense of there's general recognition by all the peoples there that they would, if they could, if they were able to have a plebiscite whereby, which was the agreement that was made, that the people would be able to have a vote what they wanted to do, who they wanted to go with, as it were. They would all vote in favor of.
You see, this question of plebiscite also needs to be understood.
All right.
When we talk of plebiscite or right of self-determination, we forget one thing, that it is the right of self-determination which has been qualified by the United Nations. It is not an unqualified right of self-determination. It's qualified in the sense and agreed upon by both India, Pakistan, and the Kashmiri leadership at that time.
In UN resolutions that have been firmly established and have been ignored over the years.
They can exercise their right in favor of either of the two countries, either India or Pakistan. So, but then there is a section for people who, even at the international level, who talk of a third option of an independent state. That's why I, in the beginning, said that the word independence has a special political connotation.
I see.
Of independent Kashmir. And, the independent Kashmir idea does not fit in with the partition plan. It doesn't so far fit in with the UN resolutions and the Security Council. And we have no authority to change either of the two things.
Oh, but it would be nice if those resolutions could be honored.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
But they're not allowed to be honored over all these years.
And they're trying to alter those resolutions and alter the whole scheme, and then go into opening another Pandora box of altering the whole partition plan, which nobody will be able to do and nobody will accept it.
Yes.
So the easiest thing to do is to honor and respect the UN CIP resolution.
But this has not been done over the years and creates frustration.
That's right. This has not been done, and that is what led the Kashmiris to rise up in revolt against the Kashmiris. How long can they wait? How long can they really lie waiting for the United Nations or somebody else to come to their rescue? And in the meantime, they were not being treated as citizens of India as the Indian government claims. If you look into the history of past 50 years, you will see that they have constantly been under pressure of a demographic change and dilution of their culture, dilution of their identity as Muslims. They were constantly under that pressure, all these 50 years. And ultimately they came to a breaking point with their economy going down and with their identity being diluted and their culture being destroyed. the demographic complexion being changed, and all those things put together made them finally rise up in resistance, which they are continuing at the moment unabated, and without any assistance. It's not like Afghanistan, where the whole world had come to their rescue and support. It is.
That's right.
Nobody is supporting Kashmiris from anywhere. There's 500,000.
It's growing out of the frustration and the suffering of those people themselves that it was doing.
And then the amount of suffering, when we say suffering, the word really does not explain what is happening in Kashmir.
We must make this known.
There is no word really which can explain the exact position in Kashmir about what is happening to them. You see, it's not a fight between the militants and the army or the security forces. Well, if that happens, that is understandable. You kill the militants, you butcher them, you do slaughter them, whatever you do. But it's a fight against the whole population.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say.
Men, women, children, young, small and young girls, teenagers being gang raped by the security forces. How does this really happen? One cannot talk about it. It is such a harrowing situation.
And it is virtually the entire population of that occupied Kashmir against which these security forces are directing their
the entire population. It's not really like what the Indian propaganda says. It's the militants. The militants are a handful of militants.
It's not a handful of terrorists, bandits, or something of that sort. It's the whole of the people.
It's the whole of the people. It's the whole support in their support. And then I think the Indian army should also be ashamed of themselves. More than 500,000 people fighting against a handful of militants. This is unintelligible, really. One doesn't understand how does this happen at all. But
this would be another charge, whether or not there is some militants that are there that are taking up arms. But we have to spell out the dimensions of this, because the degree of human suffering that is going on. It is a scorched earth policy.
Oh, yes.
And the numbers, I wonder if we could, maybe numbers could talk in a certain sense.
Yes,
the numbers of people within occupied Kashmir who, during this more recent phase, since 1989-90, something as we talk now, 93, the numbers have reached up in the tens of thousands
that's right.
who have been killed.
That is reported internationally by international agencies. Amnesty International, Asia Watch, human rights organizations, based in India itself. Not by Muslims.
Yes, I understand. These aren't exaggerated figures at all. These are figures that are understood.
And
reflect the reality.
Would certainly be more than that, but about 100,000 people have been affected in all, out of which 30 to 35,000 people are reported to have been killed, mercilessly, slaughtered, butchered, shot down, burnt alive, and
there is the systematic raping,
systematic
and ethnic
organized
cleansing,
gang raping of women, you see, and women, innocent women, not that they were carrying any arms with them,
yes, right,
and they were taken on, you see, but the innocent houses, they pulled out from the houses, taken to the military bunkers, you see, and molested. Like
and as a matter of, say, policy, in order to try and humiliate and humiliate the people.
That's right.
It is similar to, in that sense, with gang rape. And with such, it is similar to the kind of what we've come to call ethnic cleansing and the kind of thing that's been going on among another Muslim group of people in Bosnia. Yeah, in many ways. We here in the West are very aware of what has been going on in terms of Bosnia. We're not nearly aware enough of what's been going on for longer and in equal dimension in terms of population, the suffering, and the moral outrage that ought to be felt by the world population has not directed itself at these events that are going on in Kashmir the way they have in other parts of the world.
The amount of people who are languishing in prisons, on torture cells, an equal number like the ones killed and missing, and denied medical aid. The life-saving drugs are not available to them.
Right.
And then, of course, people without trial in prisons. Now, every kind of torture that the human devilish mind could have conceived, you see, is being perpetrated on them, on the Kashmiris, all these more than 2.5 years.
These more 2.5 years?
More than 2.5 years, and it continues unabated. And Indians, against their own constitution, have extended the military rule, you see, by another 6 months. This big democracy, lofty claim to democracy and secularism and civic rights and whatnot. This is what is happening. And if we were to go into probing the collective democracy and secularism, well, that would be another story to tell.
Yeah.
But in Kashmir, of course, they've been very badly exposed, and there is no democracy in Kashmir, there's no respect for human rights. And there's nothing, it's not really violation, my friend, it is denial of human rights completely.
Yeah.
Violation is one thing, that you accept the presence of human rights and you violate them, but you have totally denied them human rights. And anybody claiming to exercise anything like human rights, peaceful demand, no, they look at the funeral processions are fired at. Now what are they violating? What are they causing to India? The prayer congregations are fired at. Mosques have been closed and they're denied to the people. So this, there's nothing more that India could have done to finally to resort to a genocide. So
genocide is the right term.
Yeah,
genocide is the right term you're to be using in this,
yes, that's right.
in terms of this kind of thing. And yet the resistance and the sense of
going on.
resistance among the Kashmiri people
It's going on.
is, despite all the difficulties,
Despite all the difficulties.
they
No
continue the
support from
struggle.
outside.
The struggle,
Yes,
it could be called, it's misunderstood in the West, but it could be called, in a certain sense, jihad. Jihad is a much bigger word
Well,
than
jihad is misunderstood.
It means the struggle against wickedness. Yeah.
It's a struggle for right.
Right.
For your rights.
Right.
Any struggle for right is jihad, is termed as jihad in Islam.
Yes.
But here, people get frightened, you see, with the word jihad, so I have not been using that.
If I may, sir, we should, in our terminology, we should not, Americans should not just accept the kinds of terms that they throw and lead us around. We should try and understand the meaning of this, because if we want to understand the realities of the world, we would do well to understand the culture and the thinking and the realities of the people who make up this world, rather than putting our stereotypes
jihad
upon them.
only
Jihad, it means
sanctity,
struggle.
sanctity to a struggle, religious sanctity to a struggle.
Right.
Well, for example, I'm here explaining things, this is a part of jihad.
Of course.
So,
This is an educational
it's a
thing
part
to
of the
lead
struggle.
and consciousness
Yes,
raising
the whole
and
struggle.
trying to learn a larger
That's right.
situation. This is all being done, right? At the same time that there has been, we mentioned it briefly, but we have a whole, if we look at the location of Kashmir, strategically placed between the Hindu and the Muslim world.
That's right.
Soviet Union.
China, Soviet Union.
Afghanistan just to the
Afghanistan
north.
just next door.
Iran, just chiefed by
door,
Jal.
yes, that's right.
All of it, within an Islamic world. Then we have a broader Islamic world that stretches from Indonesia to Mauritania.
That's right.
We have Muslims being ethnically cleansed in Bosnia, being forced into a situation where they're being put under tremendous pressure by European peoples. We have Muslims in Kashmir
Yes.
that are being ruthlessly decimated in what can only be seen in genocidal terms.
That's right.
The Islamic world ought to be very, very much in unity, it would seem to me, in terms of the struggle and the suffering that so many of their Islamic brothers and community, Ummah, the larger movement of the Islamic community, should be aware of that. And are you beginning to get a sense that there is a justified uprising or a sense of unity among the broader Islamic world about the injustices that are being delivered down upon branches of the Islamic world that can be seen? There are better than a billion Islamic
Yes.
people in the world.
Yes.
They ought to unite in support of those who are being so persecuted at these various parts of the world. I wonder if you could address yourself to the fact that this Kashmir struggle is taking place within a broader Islamic world, and within that context, a broader world that has geopolitical ramifications.
Let me make it more specific in reply to what you said. Supposing there was a military confrontation between India and Pakistan, which is brewing up, and all this defense preparation will ultimately lead to some consequences.
Yes, indeed.
Certainly it's not a peaceful consequence.
Mr. Gates went to visit in 1990,
Yes.
I know, yes.
Supposing that happens, now, then the conflict will not be restricted to two armies. It will have much wider impact. It will be a war between the two communities, residing wherever they are, whether on the subcontinent, outside the subcontinent, and around. So that will involve the whole lot of the community in the region, and it may involve the world also. So it will not be restricted only to two countries or two armies or two people, but it will spread out all over the world.
To the degree it's already taken place, that is happening. That is happening as you and I talk now. Go ahead.
That's exactly what's happening. So it has that implication also, which must not be ignored.
It must not be ignored at all. And that there was also the fact that there was this worldwide attention given, as you had indicated earlier, when the Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan, and there was a worldwide attention to that. Mujahideen and others had gone to fight against the Soviet Union's incursion into Afghanistan, and that Afghanistan is very much part of the context of the geographical and geopolitical context of which we're fighting. Could you address yourself to that?
Yes, you see, as I said earlier, the movement in Kashmir is not an isolated movement. It's a movement which has now gradually grown its involvement. And I've been explaining to my friends the other day that if the people from Azad Kashmir alone, for example, they took up to join the movement, which they should have done by now. And we have reports of individuals trickling out here, and they are youngsters who are joining the movement. Then it will be a far greater thing than we conceive at the moment, because there are more than 100,000 youngsters doing nothing in Azad Kashmir alone, and basically martial people, you see, who don't have to be taught fighting. They're fighting by birth.
They've learned a great deal of fighting. There's a great number of people in that general region that learned a great deal of fighting in Afghanistan.
Now, they will be joined in by the adjoining areas like Punjab and frontier. And once that happens, Afghan is they are reaching to find a place where to go and use their skills. So if that happens, then perhaps no government of Pakistan will be competent to stop this. Any government will be just overrun by
the spontaneous action of the people themselves.
And then that will, of course, enlarge the whole scope of the battle. Now, just for not settling one small issue, you see, the whole world is being put to that dangerous end, as we see.
And it gets worse. It gets worse. The situation gets worse with the passage of time.
Yes, it's getting worse every day. It's getting worse every day. The defense preparations are on the increase. The tension is on the increase, and the army sitting on the tip of their toe all the time, confronting each other. How long can they sustain this? And no sign of India withdrawing its troops and stopping the carnage. And the Kashmiris have no way back. They can't roll back their movement for what has happened to them. They can just not reconcile or compromise. There's no possibility of any political settlement with the Kashmiris alone within the Indian framework of Indian Constitution.
I see, yeah.
So therefore something has got to be done before it is too late.
What do you see happening? What would you like to see happen? What do you think is within the power of yourselves or your colleagues or your collaborators?
Unless India is pressurized in the right way, in a meaningful manner, to sit down and accept that there is a problem which needs to be addressed, and accept that it has to be settled, and it's not a part of the integral part of India, it's not an integral part of anything. It is yet to be determined as to what it is going to be. And if they agree to this, then there can be more than one way out. You can find many ways out. But unless they agree, there's just no way out.
Is there any indication that such an agreement might be able to be forthcoming or not?
Well, people have been trying at different levels. In Washington, there was an exercise carried out by the Peace Institute under Mr. Oakley, but it did not yield any results. It became fruitless so far. But despite that fact, there are many people who have undertaken this exercise at the intellectual level, intellectual level. And I've been suggesting, pressing the point myself, that a dialogue between the Kashmiri recognized leadership from both sides of the ceasefire line should be permitted by both India and Pakistan. And it should also be joined in by the representatives from the United States and the UK, both as interested parties, to sit and find a way out as to what to do in order of priority, how to de-escalate tension first, and then how to bring them onto the table and go into that exercise. But so far there has been no specific response, unless the United States puts in its pressure. But I I may also tell you, sir.
So it becomes very important, the
It's
United
very
States and the position
No,
of the
I-
United States in this unipolar
I'm
world
working
that
on
we
something
speak
more
of.
important than that.
Yes, sir.
Audio is for watching.
There is another, there's another important development which is taking place.
Mhm.
Today, the United States is in a position to exert or exercise influence over India by various means. But as the things are moving ahead, as I see, maybe the United States is also not left with that option for one reason, that India, you must have read in the papers, is trying to sort of improve or establish new relationship with Iran. Now, this is a matter of very serious concern, and it may escape the attention of the concerned people simply because of the Indian propaganda around. Now, why is India interested in improving its relations with Iran? What has gone wrong? Now, the very simple reason is that Iranians have been supporting the Kashmir cause, at least to the extent of lip service, political and moral support they've been lending. And there's every possibility, because there's a lot of Iranian people in, Iran has been ruling Kashmir, and there's a lot of historical, the linkage between the two. And even otherwise, as a Muslim country, you see, learning what is happening to the Muslims around, they might get interested in the Kashmir movement. Now, in order to stop them doing this, Indian Prime Minister is rushing there. Now, the second point is that India has Iran is maintaining a sort of lifeline with India, the oil supply to India. Now, that can also be questions which sometimes are hampered. Now, in order to get out of these two situations, Indians are trying to make friends with them. What are they going to offer to them? That's going to be very important. What is it that India can offer to Iran? It is export of nuclear technology. And once that happens, the Americans have been very...
We should keep that in mind.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Once it is done, then it is no use like Presser amendment. You see, when India had made all the preparations, the Presser moved on to fix another date and exempt India. Now, if India is exempted from exporting nuclear technology, if it's not exempted from doing that, nuclear technology is going to go over to Iran. And on one hand, India has been saying that it's a secular country, it's against Islamic fundamentalism. How is it that they find it convenient to make friends with, according to them, a fundamentalist Muslim state, Iran? And it is being connived at by the United States. Either the United States is helpless or it is conniving at it. And both ways it is going to be very wrong. Whether they are helpless, it's wrong, and if they are conniving at it, they are heading towards disaster in the region.
And what is in our real long-term interest is to be able for us to establish realistic contact with the Islamic world, the broader Islamic world.
Instead of making enemies out of them and letting India go and exploit that position, why not make friends with them?
Absolutely.
This is exactly what I'm going to say.
Couldn't agree with you more. And this is what ought to be said to the American people, but they haven't. And if there's one area of the world, it seems to me, that where the forces that come together in terms of the importance of the Islamic world strategically, and in terms of the location and the events historically that are developing, that bring a degree of tension or a degree of dialectic tension, it is Kashmir. If there is one area of this world that we must understand if we are to try and understand and relate to the broader Islamic world and concern, it is Kashmir, and we've been woefully lax in doing that as far as the American people are concerned. We need to understand this much better, and you're here in the United States, you're here now helping to, as you say, educate the people.
That's right.
We're hoping here we can help to educate people the basic principles and the basic realities of what are going on in that particular...
Not be led or misled by propaganda,
Right.
but address the ground realities of the situation. So not be oblivious of that fact.
Yeah, there's been so much of that propaganda that's been directed. And again, it's directed the way might be found, it would seem to me, there's been a great deal of animosity between those. It's not necessarily either the Indian people that we necessarily talk about. There is there has been conflict within India itself between Muslims. You've got over 100 million people, Muslims within India.
130 million.
130 people within India itself. There's been conflict there between that, so that there's that kind of a conflict that is there in that region of the world, and it's centered in this. It's really important for the world that there be a solution found to this long-term problem. The solution could be found within the context of United Nations resolutions that have to be passed. It could be addressed too.
If you violate that basis,
and you, as a leader of the Azad Kashmir, if I may, and the broader people, is one who speaks to this particular issue, to whom people of great importance and understanding of the need to find a way in this world for the people to get along should be addressing themselves, if I may say so. They should be addressing themselves to you as one of the most important leaders here.
The basic contribution that I can make, I would love to do it, and I'm sure the kind of influence that some of us, the old guards from politics who we still alive,
yes, sir.
They perhaps can play a more sobering role, you see, in this than the youngsters, compared to the youngsters, you see, who would understand only the other languages.
They'd be a little bit more hot-blooded sometimes to do that sort of thing. And in the youth, but you've been involved right at the very heart of that. You continue to have the tremendous loyalty of the people around you in Azad Kashmir and in broader Pakistan. The Kashmir issue is one that unites the Pakistani peoples in common cause. In terms of that, this, in terms, ought to, in a certain sense, unite the broader Islamic community, and in a certain sense it ought to unite, if I may say so, the broader world community of concerned citizens who are truly concerned about our finding our way on this earth in terms of the way toward peace, the way from...
together for peace, you see.
Yes, indeed.
Instead of fighting against each other for nothing.
And in fact,
work together for peace.
Working together for peace, and we should understand also in the West that working together for peace in this pattern is in the best keeping of the Islamic tradition, and that the Islamic tradition is a system that is working towards peace. We would do well to understand these things here in the West, where we do not understand them well enough and have set up bogey men that we have fought. Right? Well, it would seem to me that if there's anyone who can help elucidate this situation and put it within a world context, has fought on the front lines of both intellectually and in a physical sense to bring this just cause to that part of the world and to help spread it around the world, has been yourself. And I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much for participating here in conversations. I remind you, it's been your pleasure to have the perceptions of Sardar Mohammad Abdul Qayyum Khan. He is Prime Minister.
Full name, yes.
Yes, that's the full name, and we will be putting that up so people can do it and how they can be in touch with you and your associates. And he's the Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, an extremely important area that we've been happy to have been able to bring attention of the viewing audience to. We here on Conversations invite you to tune in. We'll be coming back again next week. Once again, Prime Minister, welcome very, very much to New York City. And I thank you very much for having participated in tonight's program. Good night. We'll see you next week. Good night.